What happens when a laid-back soul singer gets pushed to his absolute breaking point on live television? You're about to find out, because Teddy Swims just had one of the most explosive moments in talk show history. And it all went down on The Kelly Clarkson Show. Teddy walked onto the set all smiles, ready to talk about his music and journey. Kelly greeted him with her trademark warmth, and everything seemed perfectly normal. They chatted about his latest album, the tour, and how his life had changed since his music blew up. Teddy was being his authentic self, cracking jokes, talking about his struggles before fame, and opening up in a way that felt genuine and real. Then Kelly shifted gears. She brought up his past, specifically old videos from before he was famous. Teddy has always been open about his journey, working regular jobs, struggling to make ends meet, doing whatever it took to survive. But Kelly started digging into specific old posts and clips where he was just trying to get noticed. At first, Teddy laughed it off, saying, "Yeah, I was doing whatever I could to get people to pay attention. I was hungry. I was desperate to be heard, and I'm not ashamed of that." Kelly nodded, but she kept pushing. She pulled up one particular video on the screen behind them, and Teddy's expression changed. This wasn't playful anymore. Kelly asked why he acted a certain way back then, and why he seemed so different now. Teddy took a breath and said, "I was different because I hadn't found myself yet. I was trying to be what I thought people wanted me to be. I was performing even when the cameras weren't rolling because I didn't know who I was allowed to be." Kelly replied with something that sounded supportive. "But that's part of the journey, right? We all have to figure out who we are." Teddy agreed, but then she added, "It's just interesting, because some people might look at those old videos and wonder if the person you are now is the real you, or if that was the real you." The temperature in the room changed instantly. Teddy sat up straighter. "What are you asking me, Kelly? Are you asking if I'm being fake now?" Kelly tried to backtrack, saying she only meant to point out how much he'd evolved, but Teddy wasn't letting it go. "I've evolved because I finally feel safe enough to be myself. I've evolved because I'm not starving anymore, not worrying about rent, not panicking about whether anyone cares about my voice. That version of me was desperate. This version of me is free." Kelly tried to move on to his songwriting process, but the energy was off. Teddy's answers were short, guarded. Trying to smooth things over, Kelly said, "I don't want you to think I was attacking you earlier. I just think it's important to acknowledge all versions of ourselves." Teddy looked straight at her and said, "I do acknowledge all versions of myself. But what I don't appreciate is someone implying I'm not authentic now because I was struggling then." The audience went silent. Kelly said it wasn't her intention, but Teddy interrupted. "You brought me on this show to talk about my music, to share my message with people who feel like they don't belong. Instead, you're showing videos of me when I was broken, when I was trying anything to survive, and questioning whether I'm real. Do you know how that feels?" Kelly, clearly shaken, apologized. "I was trying to celebrate your journey," she said. Teddy replied, "Celebrating my journey would mean talking about where I am now, not dissecting who I was when I had nothing." Kelly admitted he was right and apologized again, saying she respected him deeply. Teddy nodded, but stayed firm. This happens all the time. People love a struggle story until the person actually makes it out. Then suddenly it's like, wait, let's remind you where you came from. Let's make sure you're still humble. It's exhausting. Kelly said she understood, but Teddy continued. Do you, though? You've been famous since you were 20. You won a competition and became a household name overnight. I know you worked hard, but you didn't spend a decade being invisible. You didn't spend years wondering if anyone would ever care. So when you question my authenticity now, it hits different. The crowd stayed dead quiet. Kelly looked uncomfortable but listened. You're right, she said. Our journeys have been different, and I can't fully understand what you went through. I brought those videos up because I thought they showed your resilience and determination, not to attack you. Teddy leaned back, rubbing his face. I hear you, he said, but impact matters more than intention. You might have meant it one way, but it landed differently. When you've been through real struggle, looked down on, told you're not enough, you become sensitive to anything that feels like that same energy, even when it's wrapped up nicely. Kelly nodded, thoughtful now. I never thought about it that way. I can see how that would bring up a lot. Teddy softened slightly. Look, I'm not trying to make this a whole thing or make you the villain. But we need to talk about how we treat artists, how quick people are to romanticize pain, but uncomfortable when someone grows beyond it. Teddy continued, especially for artists who came from nothing. There's this weird thing where people want you to stay grateful to the point of being small. Like, yes, be thankful, but don't get too confident. Yes, celebrate your success. But don't forget you were nothing before this. And it's toxic. Kelly asked him to explain what he meant by that. And Teddy took a deep breath. It means people love an underdog until the underdog actually wins, he said. Then it's like, well, let's make sure they don't get too comfortable. Let's remind them they could lose it all. Let's poke at their insecurities and call it keeping them grounded. But what it really does is keep people in a state of anxiety, never fully able to enjoy what they've worked for because they're always waiting for someone to tell them they don't deserve it. Kelly sat with that for a moment before replying, That's really powerful, and I think you're speaking to something that a lot of people experience, not just in the entertainment industry. Teddy nodded. Absolutely. This isn't just about music or fame. It's about how we treat anyone who rises above their circumstances. There's always someone ready to question if they've earned it, if they're still the same person, or if they've changed for the worse. Then Kelly asked a question that sounded genuinely curious. So, how do you deal with that? How do you stay true to yourself when there's so much pressure and so many voices telling you who you should be? Teddy paused and thought carefully before answering. Honestly, it's a daily practice, he said. Some days I'm better at it than others. What helps is remembering why I started making music in the first place. It wasn't for fame or validation. It was because singing was the only time I felt like I could breathe. The only time I felt like myself. So when things get overwhelming, when people start projecting their stuff onto me, I go back to that feeling. I remind myself that the music is mine, the message is mine, and nobody can take that away from me unless I let them. Kelly's tone shifted as she responded. I think I needed to hear that too, she admitted. Because even though my journey was different, I still deal with people questioning my choices, my authenticity, whether I'm still real, and maybe I projected some of that onto you without realizing it. Teddy's expression softened. We're all dealing with our own stuff, he said. I get that. But that's exactly why we need to be more careful with each other. We need to ask ourselves, is this question coming from genuine curiosity? Or is it coming from my own insecurity? Is this conversation going to build someone up or tear them down? The audience began to clap. Not the polite applause typical of talk shows, but something deeper, more emotional. Kelly waited for the sound to fade before saying something unexpected. Can I be really honest with you right now? She asked. Teddy nodded. Please, Kelly continued. I think part of why I approached this conversation the way I did is because I've been feeling disconnected from my own authenticity lately. I've been doing this for so long, and sometimes I wonder if I'm asking the right questions, if I'm connecting with people the way I used to. Maybe I was trying to create a moment instead of just having a real conversation, and that's on me. Teddy looked surprised by her vulnerability. I respect you for saying that, he said. That takes courage. But here's what I'll tell you. The moments that matter aren't the ones you manufacture. They're the ones that happen when you stop performing and start being present. And I say that as someone who spent years performing even when I wasn't on stage. Kelly nodded thoughtfully. So how do I get back to that? How do I stop overthinking and just be? She asked. Teddy leaned forward, his voice steady but warm. You stop worrying about what the moment is supposed to look like and start paying attention to what's actually happening. You listen, really listen, not just to respond, but to understand. You let go of the script in your head and follow the flow of the conversation. And most importantly, you remember that the person sitting across from you is a human being with feelings, a story, fears, and dreams, not just content for your show. Kelly took that in, visibly moved. You're right, she said quietly. And I'm sorry that I made you feel like content instead of a person. Teddy nodded. I appreciate that. And look, I know this is your job. I know you have producers, writers, and a whole team trying to make good television. But good television doesn't have to come at the expense of someone's dignity. You can have compelling conversations without digging into people's wounds. Kelly agreed immediately. Absolutely, and I want to do better, she said. Then she asked, What do you wish I had asked you instead? What conversation do you want to have? Teddy thought for a moment. I wish you had asked me about the moment I realized my voice mattered, he said. I wish you had asked about the people who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. I wish you had asked what I want people to feel when they hear my music. Those are the conversations that matter to me, not whether I was cringy in some old video. Kelly smiled, and this time it felt real. Okay, she said. So tell me, what do you want people to feel when they hear your music? Teddy's eyes lit up. I want them to feel seen, he said. I want them to feel like someone out there understands their pain, their joy, their confusion, all of it. I want them to know it's okay to be messy, to not have it all figured out. I want my music to be a safe space where people can be exactly who they are without judgment. Kelly's voice was full of emotion as she replied, That's beautiful, and I think that's why people connect with you so deeply, because they can feel that intention in every note you sing. Teddy smiled. That means a lot coming from you, and I know we got off to a rocky start today. But I think this is the conversation we needed to have. Not just for us, but for everyone watching who's ever felt like they had to defend their growth or their journey. Kelly nodded. I think you're absolutely right, she said. And I'm grateful you called me out, because growth only happens when we're willing to be uncomfortable. Teddy smiled. Exactly, and that goes both ways. I had to check myself too. I came in here defensive, ready to protect myself, and that's not the energy I want to carry. I want to be open and generous, even when conversations get difficult. Then Kelly shifted the conversation again. Do you think there's ever a time when it's okay to look back at who we used to be? She asked. Or should we always just focus on moving forward? Teddy considered this carefully. I think looking back is necessary, he said, but it has to be done with compassion. When I look at old videos of myself, I don't see someone to be embarrassed by. I see someone doing his best with what he had. Someone brave enough to put himself out there, even when he had no idea what he was doing. That version of me deserves respect, not ridicule. Kelly nodded. That's such a healthy way to view it, she said. I think a lot of us, myself included, look back and cringe at our old selves. Teddy smiled softly. And that's the problem. We've been conditioned to cringe at growth. We've been taught that who we were before is something to be ashamed of, instead of something to honor as part of our story. Every version of us got us to where we are now. Every mistake, every awkward moment, every failed attempt, it all mattered. The audience was completely locked in. You could feel the moment had transcended the usual talk show chatter. Kelly exhaled and said, I needed this conversation today. I think a lot of people did. Teddy smiled. Good, he said. Because this is what I mean when I say I want my music and my presence to create space for real talk. We spend so much time being polite and surface level, when in reality, we're all struggling with the same things, feeling alone in our experiences when we're really not alone at all. Tututituan. Kelly sat back, clearly weighing something on her mind. She said, "Can I ask you something that might be uncomfortable?" Teddy smiled and replied, "After everything we just went through, I think we can handle uncomfortable." Kelly laughed, and the tension that had been present at the beginning of the interview completely dissolved. "Do you ever worry," she asked, "that by being so open, by being so vulnerable, you're giving people ammunition to hurt you?" Teddy didn't hesitate. "Every single day," he said. "But I'd rather be hurt for being honest than praised for being fake. Because here's what I've learned. When you hide parts of yourself to protect yourself, you're not really protecting yourself. You're just building a prison. You're creating a version of yourself that's safe for other people, but slowly killing the real you. And I did that for so long that when I finally started being authentic, it felt like I could breathe for the first time in my life. So yeah, it's scary. Yeah, people will use my vulnerability against me. But the alternative is suffocating, and I can't go back to that." Kelly wiped her eyes, clearly moved. "I think that's one of the most powerful things I've ever heard anyone say on this show," she said. "And I'm so sorry that my questions at the beginning made you feel like you had to defend that vulnerability." Teddy shook his head. "You don't have to keep apologizing," he said. "We talked through it. We got to the other side of it. That's what matters. But I do hope that moving forward, you'll think about the impact your questions have, not just on me, but on every guest who sits in this chair." Kelly nodded emphatically. "I absolutely will," she said. "And I want to thank you for not just shutting down or walking off, because you had every right to. Instead, you stayed. You pushed through the discomfort, and you gave us all something real to think about." "I stayed," Teddy said, "because I believe in the power of difficult conversations. I stayed because I think we're all tired of surface-level interactions. I stayed because maybe someone watching this needs to see that it's okay to speak up when something doesn't feel right, even if it makes things awkward." Kelly asked him one final question, one that felt like the heart of everything. "What do you want your legacy to be? Not as an artist, but as a person?" Teddy took a long pause, really sitting with the question before answering. "I want people to remember me as someone who made them feel less alone," he said. "I want them to remember that I showed up as myself, fully and completely, even when it was terrifying. I want them to know that I saw them, all the broken parts and all the beautiful parts, and I loved them anyway. That's what I want my legacy to be, not the number of records I sold or the awards I won, but the way I made people feel." Kelly smiled through tears. "You're already doing that," she said. "You're already leaving that legacy. And after today, after this conversation, I think you've done that even more powerfully than you realize." Teddy smiled, and it was the first completely unguarded smile he'd shown since the interview began. "I hope so," he said. "Because at the end of the day, that's all any of us really want, right? To matter. To know that our existence made a difference in someone's life, even if it's just one person." Kelly stood up, and so did Teddy. She reached out to hug him, and he accepted. It wasn't a performative hug for the cameras, it was real. When they pulled apart, Kelly turned to the audience. "I want everyone watching to really sit with what just happened here," she said. "This is what happens when we're brave enough to be honest with each other. This is what happens when we stop pretending everything is fine and actually address the tension in the room. Thank you, Teddy, for your courage and your honesty." Teddy turned to the audience and said, "And thank you all for witnessing this. I know it got intense, but I hope it gave you permission to have your own hard conversations, to speak your truth, even when your voice shakes." Kelly nodded and added, "Before we go, I want to say one more thing. Growth is messy. Change is uncomfortable. And if we're going to evolve as individuals and as a society, we have to be willing to sit in that discomfort. We have to be willing to call each other out and call each other in, with love and respect." "Exactly," Teddy said. "And we have to remember that the goal isn't to tear each other down, The goal is to build each other up, to challenge each other to be better, to hold each other accountable while also holding space for each other's humanity. Kelly smiled. "That's the perfect way to end this," she said. "Thank you for being here. Thank you for your music. And thank you for this conversation." Teddy replied, "Thank you for having me, and thank you for being willing to go there with me." And that was it. What started as a standard talk show interview turned into one of the most raw and real conversations television had seen in a long time. Teddy Swims didn't just show up to promote his music. He showed up to remind everyone that authenticity matters, that growth deserves to be honored, and that difficult conversations are where real connection happens. If this resonated with you, make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below. Do you think Kelly was wrong for bringing up Teddy's past? Or was it a fair topic of conversation? Let us know what you think.